Shalom, this is Shira Sherbo coming to you from Sfat, Israel, and Torah for the Nations. I thought you might want to enjoy the beautiful sunrise with me this morning. It's a little after 6 in the morning here in Sfat. So there are 54 Torah portions, and this week we are on portion number 4. The first portion we learned about in the beginning of God's creation. The second portion was about Noah. We learned that his name means rest and contentment, and he found favor with God. And last week we learned about Abraham and what he needed to do to reach his full potential. And in this week's Torah portion we find out that he did reach his full potential. At the end of our parsha it says that God said, Abraham, Abraham. And in the Zohar, it tells us that every one of us are going to meet our Maker one day, and there's going to be a picture of us if we had reached our full potential. And hopefully, we don't look at that picture and say, who's that? And God has to say, you know, that's the you who you could have been if you weren't so spiritually lazy and applied yourself to do the things, you know, that I had for you to do. So we don't want to miss it. But Abraham, when God said, Abraham, Abraham, that was telling him that he had reached his full potential. The same picture that God was seeing in heaven was the same Abraham on earth. He had done everything that God required of him. So one of the things that Abraham teaches us, you know, he's the epitome of loving kindness, God's attribute of hesed. And so to be close to God, we imitate him. And so this is one of the things that Abraham did so well. He showed such gracious hospitality. He was a man that said little and did much. I don't know if you've ever worked at a place where they just kept having meetings and planning and talking, and then nothing ever really got done. Well, that was not Abraham. Abraham would say to his guests, you know, oh, stay, you know, it's nothing. I'll just bring out some bread and water. You know, we'll just have prison food. And in the end, he put on a feast fit for a king. You know, they would feel like they were at a 5-star hotel by the time he got done. But he always made light of it. Even though he had servants, he did most of the work himself. This was our father Abraham. So there's a cute story of a traveling salesman that is getting close to Shabbat, and he missed the train home. So he's in a panic. He's got to get somewhere for Shabbat. So he looks in the phone book, back in the days of phone books, and the last name Cohen is a very popular Jewish last name. So he's thought, I'll have to see if there's a Cohen in this town and see if I can be with him for Shabbat. So he looks, he finds a Mr. Cohen, he calls him, he tells him his predicament, and Mr. Cohen is, sure, you know, I'm more than happy to have you come for Shabbat. So he gets to Mr. Cohen's house, and Mr. Cohen shows him the room he can stay in, and over here is a shower, take a hot shower. Downstairs is the refrigerator, just help yourself. And there's some cholent simmering on the stove. And, you know, maybe you want to have something to eat before Shabbat. Oh, and by the way, I charge $150 per person for Shabbat. And he said, what? You know, $150? I could stay at a hotel for that much. And Mr. Cohen said, well, you know, it's up to you. So he really didn't have much choice. There wasn't time to find someplace else. So he said, fine. But then he thought, you know, if I'm going to be paying $150, I'm really going to enjoy myself. So he goes and he takes a really long hot shower, and he goes downstairs and helps himself to some cholent. And when they have the Shabbat meal, he just dines like a king. The next day, the same thing, and just thoroughly enjoys the Shabbat, the prayers, the singing. The end of Shabbat, he puts $150 on the table, and Mr. Cohen says, what's that? And he goes, well, you told me it was $150. And he goes, you think really that I'm going to charge you when I have this great opportunity to do a mitzvah? You know, a mitzvah is a kindness, a good deed. He said, no way. I just said that so that you would relax and feel at home. And so what that tells us, you know, is that when we are a host and when we have people in our home, when we show hospitality, there's a way to do it to really, so that they really don't feel like they're imposing. If you have someone for dinner and they bring a bottle of wine, you know, don't say, oh no, you shouldn't have done that. Just say, wow, thank you, and open it right away and put it on the table and be like, you know, I bet that's not going to last long. And you know, you want to do everything to make people feel like they're not just takers, you know. And so that's what this Mr. Cohen was able to do. He was able to get his guests to relax and do things he might not have done if he didn't think he was paying for it. So our father Abraham, you know, he saw each person as special. He, in the beginning of this Torah portion, you know, he's speaking to the strangers that come, and he says, yes, my Lord. And our sages say, you know, sometimes it's hard to tell with Abraham if he's talking to God or to his guests. And so it just shows that even though he was a rich man, he didn't look down on people. He saw every people. He had time for people. He saw their uniqueness, their specialness. And so let us all learn from this Torah portion. You know, there's always practical applications in our Torah, that we should treat every single person with uniqueness and specialness the way that Abraham did. Talk to them with respect, and that we should all have the clarity and the strength to reach our full potential the way that Abraham did. All right. I hope you were able to see a little bit of the sunrise this morning, and we will see you next week, Lord willing. Bye for now.